I done spent all this time slaving in the kitchen. Stop playing. Of course I cooked this food. You, baby, go see who's at the door.
I know you waited for this one.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, this is a cancellation. I know this is the time of the year where the family members get together, ain't it? Greens, beans, potatoes, tomatoes, turkey better with the dressing, ain't it? Wonder if I put a little bit of blood on the turkey, would it elevate it? Huh? Bloody, bloody, bloody people of color. Cut them, shoot them, burn them, leave them to suffer. This song is not about pilgrims and Indians meeting each other and feasting for supper. This about millions of Indians murdered and villages burning and bleeding for nothing. This about all my descendants in Africa happy and acting like we ain't discussed it. Y'all be saying that ain't the reason we celebrate it. This about giving the glory to God and the time that we spend as a family, ain't it? That was so long ago, we weren't even alive. We gotta accept the changes. Sounding just like the white kids that be saying forget about segregation. I can't keep embracing the demons. How do we celebrate on the same day of a grievance? Murder and torture and slavery. They was really chopping Indian babies to pieces. Cut off the mama head. Yeah, kick it around and play in the street with it. Hold up. Did I already say chopping up babies to pieces? Chop up the baby. Chop the baby. Chop the baby. Grandma looking. That's okay, Granny. Watch the baby. Eat up the dead bodies. Yeah. And you thought the cops was crazy. I'm killing everybody. Oh yeah. I'm talking Nazi crazy. No blood in the Holocaust. But y'all still won't call it off. Kill so many Indians, they had to get Africans. That's how we got involved.
Many know about slavery, but few discuss paper genocide. We did not all come from Africa, and most of us have aboriginal roots that were stripped away due to reclassification and miseducation. As a native Black American and a member of the Muscogee Creek Nation, I understand the importance of tracing your lineage. If you want to learn how to trace your genealogy and apply for tribal citizenship, send an email to mike@keymediapro.com to schedule a consultation.
Then they went and got involved. That's when they got our heart involved. Because of that reason, we made this a Black tradition. Tell me who asked for kissing. Ain't we the same people that was marching on Washington for racial equality? Ain't we descendants of civil rights leaders making sure they educated us properly? Ain't we the same people, mad at the same people for making a mockery? Didn't we invent cancel culture? So tell me why we can't cancel culture. Y'all be saying that ain't the reason we celebrate it. It's about giving the glory to God and the time we spend as a family.
I am a Mashantucket Pequot tribal member. I became federally recognized in 1993. Previous to that, I was always known to be a Afro-American. I was told as I was younger that we have native blood, if you will, and relatives of the Narragansett and the Pequots. I remember as I was growing up, the question was asked a lot if I'm mulatto because of my light skin, and I'm like, no, there are no Caucasians in my family as I know of. But it came clear to me when I was told more of my native side.
Here in Lexington, Kentucky, it's so important. People honestly don't look at me on the street and see my name, Victor Hess, and go, oh yeah, Narragansett. Probably doesn't dawn on them. It probably says, African American by virtue of my pigmentation.
As you're aware, in 1912, Dr. Walter Plecker became the first director of the Bureau of Vital Statistics. Prior to that, there were no birth certificates, and he was a director up until the 1940s, 1946, until his death. But he was part of the eugenics movement, which was a movement about creating one race of people, which was white, and everything else was put in a pot, as Tina Marie would say, and stir it up and call colored. But he went beyond board on that, wherein as far as first Americans are concerned, he changed birth certificates and marriage license. He even put out letters to census takers in 1930 that people such as myself that are first Americans and Native Americans, that he considered us as being bastards, that we were just trying to be Indian to marry into the white race. What's so interesting about that was that in the 30s he gave a presentation in New York City and on eugenics, and there were commanders associated with Adolf Hitler that attended that particular meeting.
But basically, when he was the registrar for the Bureau of Vital Records, he changed the names of Indian people in Southampton County, their race, from Indian to Negro or colored.
Well, it was referred to as colored, and basically all the tribes in Virginia in the early 1900s were referred to as colored. Okay, then after the 1924 Racial Integrity Act, everything that was in that colored bowl became Negro. Everything that was in that colored bowl became Negro, became Negro, became Negro.
They don't want you to remember this. You not no slave, you indigenous. Fuck how they painted them Indians. You went to war with the French and the British, man. Quite frankly, you was kings, Merovingians. They took the women and men, made them prisoners. Raised up the children to worship their images. Set up a lab to the genes and they mixed them. And this shit get way deeper than your pigment.
Thanksgiving has been bastardized. Its origins stem from an indigenous ritual celebrating the fall harvest. In 1621, we took pity on poor homeless pilgrims and let them eat at our cookout. How did they repay us? Our ancestors were robbed, killed, molested, enslaved, miseducated, reclassified, segregated, discriminated. We are dealing with the residual effects present day. With that being said, I don't expect Black folks to observe this as a national day of mourning like most American Indians do. For us, this is a time for sports, reconnecting with family. Grandma and aunties get to throw down in the kitchen. We get to take that, pre-Thanksgiving meal, celebratory smoke sesh with the cousins, etc., etc. But all I ask is that if you are celebrating today, make sure to educate yourself about this history and know what you're celebrating for. We can celebrate our family, the resilience of our ancestors, but we don't celebrate the ungrateful pilgrims getting a handout.
The fruits of honest toil.
There's a lot to be thankful for, but the story behind America's Thanksgiving holiday has some experts crying foul. Put simply, Thanksgiving was first declared a holiday by President George Washington in 1789. It's often remembered as a friendly harvest feast shared between English colonists or pilgrims and the native Wampanoag people. But Native experts like Chris Newell, a Passamaquoddy and director of Agamount Educational Initiative, say that story falls short.
If you are in love with the Pilgrim narrative as the true history of what happened, then it becomes an erasure story.
Quick history lesson.
The relationship between the Wampanoag and the Pilgrims was complicated.
Melissa Costa is Wampanoag and a manager at the Plymouth Patuxent Museum in Massachusetts.
What actually happened was...
Yes, this woman is a Wampanoag native. Guys, the Wampanoags were Black folks. These were Black Indians. These were melanated aboriginals, if you will. So I know we kind of loosely heard that, Thanksgiving is really fake history and they slaughtered the natives. But did y'all realize that these were Black Indians that we're talking about? These were Black Indians who took these starving, ungrateful pilgrims in and let them partake in their harvest ritual, celebrating the fall harvest, the abundance that it brought. They let these immigrants come to the cookout, and look at how they were repaid.
A harvest fest in 1621 that the English were having, or the Pilgrims were having, and Massasoit shows up with 90 of his men.
Massasoit was the leader of the Wampanoag Confederacy.
Was it an invitation? Probably not. But he does show up and stay for 3 days.
That meeting later commemorated in President Lincoln's Thanksgiving proclamation following the Battle of Gettysburg.
One of the things that he fell in love with was the idea of a founding myth that would kind of bring all Americans together. A woman named Sarah Josepha Hale began popularizing the Pilgrim narrative myth through her magazine Godey's Ladies Book.
Newell says Hale also wrote letters to lawmakers urging for a national Thanksgiving holiday that centered on Native people welcoming settler colonials. Native scholars point to a darker retelling.
Squanto was a Wampanoag Patuxet man who was captured as a slave and makes his way back here, but he's used as a tour guide and translator.
Historians estimate as many as 5 million Native people and leaders were captured and enslaved from the time of European arrival until 1900.
But they want us to believe that we descend from the 4% of African slaves that came to the 13 colonies. No, we descend from the millions of Black Indian slaves that have been reclassified, miseducated, and made victims of paper genocide.
Waves of epidemics reducing the Native population by an estimated 95% in the first years after European arrival.
This is an art form that is starting to come back to the Wampanoag people, and its significance is huge.
According to Costa, settlers also enacted laws which prohibited the Wampanoag from speaking their language and practicing their religion. So today, she works to reclaim Thanksgiving for the Wampanoag.
What's the first thing they say to a Black person that identifies with their Aboriginal roots? Oh, you don't look like an Indian. What's the second ignorant ass thing they say to us? Oh, but do you speak the language? Well, hey, are you aware that for hundreds of years they've penalized us, they've persecuted us, they've lynched us for speaking our indigenous tongue?
Known as the people of the first light.
To come back to the Wampanoag people, and its significance is huge.
According to Costa, settlers also enacted laws which prohibited the Wampanoag from speaking their language and practicing their religion. So today, she works to reclaim Thanksgiving for the Wampanoag.
So when Martin Luther King Jr. said, Plymouth Rock landed on us, who do you think he was referring to? Do you think Martin Luther King Jr. knew that we had Aboriginal roots? Why else would he say something like that? Why else would he say Plymouth Rock landed on us? And then when you learn here today that the Wampanoag natives that the whole Thanksgiving thing is supposed to be based on were melanated black folks, come on, y'all. Let me get some fists and feathers in the chat if this is your first time realizing that those Wampanoag natives over on the East Coast were melanated aboriginals. If you see this sister right here on the streets, you just gonna think this a black lady. She'd probably be misclassified as an African American, wouldn't she?
Known as the people of the first light.
We celebrate a day of mourning where you'll see some of the native staff actually with black on their face to represent the day of mourning.
Those that want to understand the true history, I would encourage them. I encourage everybody to enjoy the holiday, but I also encourage people to go beyond the popular narrative that they've been taught.
And yes, thank you guys for correcting me and holding me accountable as always. That was not MLK that said that. That was Malcolm X in a quote from a 1964 civil rights speech. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. Okay, shout out to Malcolm.
Thanksgiving simply explained.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the
I have covered the topic of Black Indians very often as a Native American journalist and radio show host, and I have found so often a disproportionate amount of understanding for those of white and Indian ancestry and Black and Indian ancestry. For example, if I say, I'm Mohawk and Austrian and German, people very rarely question that I'm Native American. This is not necessarily the case with people of African American descendancy and Native American descendancy. They often get questioned, well, you couldn't be, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of a double standard. At a recent powwow, I was lucky to meet up with some friends of mine, Dr. Erica Coleman, who is Rappahannock and African American, and she is the writer of the book That the Blood Stay Pure. She's also a professor of Black Studies at the University of Delaware. Mr. Harold Caldwell is Gros Ventre and Muscogee, and he's a northern traditional dancer who's been all over the country. And both of them have told me on numerous accounts on how they received criticism for, because they look African American, they couldn't possibly be Native American. So I interviewed them, and they have some very, very interesting comments.
Oh yeah, let's talk about it. We're gonna see some interviews with some Black Indians here on Thanksgiving. Ain't nobody giving you the content like Mike TV. Let's talk about it. Hit the like button on the way in. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Throw 5 on the Cash App or the PayPal if you support the mission. This is a crowd-funded operation after all. And let's proceed with the content. But before we do, I also urge you guys to check out my new website, nativeblack.ancestry.com. You can have access to my genealogy services as well as exclusive content. A lot of historical evidence of Black Indians since, the 1400s and much, much more. So go ahead and check out nativeblack.ancestry.com.
As you can see, I am of African American heritage, and I do have what they call dreadlocks. And a lot of times when I tell people that I am also Native American, they have a real problem. Oh my God, an Indian in dreadlocks. Well, of course, if you understand the history of African American and Native American peoples in this country, we had some things in common. Once the communication barrier was taken care of, the Native people and African peoples realized that there was so much in common culturally. For instance, the drum. The drum is the heartbeat of the nation. of Native Americans and both African peoples. We honor our ancestors.
Yes, let's talk about it. Some of us have a mixed heritage. Again, only 4% of the African slaves came to the 13 colonies, only 4%. But some of us, a small minority of us Black Americans, do have some distant African heritage. But guess what? Over 90% of us have Aboriginal heritage. Either Aboriginal heritage with zero African admixture or Aboriginal heritage with some African admixture. But either way, they want us to be African American and don't want us to acknowledge our indigenous roots on this side. I don't get that. I don't understand. Me personally, I've done my genealogy and I don't have any roots in Africa. It was all Black Indians here from time immemorial. I descend from Creek town kings and members of the Muscogee Creek Nation, judicial. Actually, what was he exactly? What was he exactly? Guys, I'm over here freestyling and I'm not really, giving proper homage to my ancestors by freestyling like this and not having the correct facts. So let me actually go to my new website, nativebblackancestry.com, because not only, right in the first paragraph do I acknowledge the fact that we are indigenous peoples of what is currently known as the Americas and the Caribbean, and some of us are also the descendants of indigenous peoples of Africa. It's important to note that there are Black natives who have no African heritage at all. They're simply the descendants of indigenous peoples of the Americas. But this is what I'm mentioning when we talk about my lineage in particular. This is one of my lineal ancestors, Thomas Jefferson Adams Harcho. He was a full-blooded Creek citizen, successful attorney, respected leader. He was known as a town king in Oklahoma, and this is what his role was within the tribe. He was the Chief Justice of the Creek Nation Supreme Court. So guys, when you do your genealogy, when you trace your heritage, you may have some African heritage in there too. Cool. Honor it, respect it, right? But a lot of us have Aboriginal roots with no African admixture, but for some reason, we've been force-fed this African identity, right? They've been force-feeding that, shoving it down our throats. When you watch that Roots movie, and you, what's your name? Kunta. Oh, no, you're Toby, da-da-da-da. We think that we see them beating the African out of that actor. But no, what they were doing subconsciously is they were beating the African into our psyche. None of our ancestors talk about being from Africa, right? But they talk about being American Indian. We ain't got no African culture, no African roots, no African heritage that we can really place a finger on. But those folks in the Caribbean do. Those folks in South America do. Those areas where most of the African slaves went, they surely do. They do the African dances and eat the fufu and the jollof and the oxtails and all that shit. But us, no, we different.
Ancestors is shared both between African American and Native American people. This love of nature, no, not a worship of nature, but understanding that we are all connected.
I spent most of my life dancing out in California, out west. Never really had any problems until I came here to Virginia. It is absolutely a struggle. People with the cultural, conflict within themselves. I think you really have to be strong within yourself first in order to walk in this world, especially if you don't quote unquote look Indian. But I think that's the first part that has to come first, and then moving forward to try to prove who you are. But there are full-bloods that feel like they don't need to have their card. Only cultural group in the country that needs to identify who they are as a culture, and people generally accept you for who you are and they trust you who you are.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Guys, I have my card. I'm a tribal citizen of the Muscogee Creek Nation, card-carrying American Indian and all that. And guess what? There's full-blooded Indians who don't give a damn about this card, who throw their card away, who don't even apply for tribal citizenship. So just because someone has tribal citizenship doesn't necessarily mean they're a true American Indian. I mean, we got a whole lot of $5 Indians and a whole bunch of immigrants and pilgrims that found their way onto the reservation one way or another. And just because you don't have tribal citizenship, that does not mean you don't have Aboriginal heritage.
And I think when you do things the right way, then people know that you're walking in the right way, and they generally believe in what you say.
When we found out that those things were in common, it was very easy for us to begin to fellowship with one another. And as one artist says, he says, first we prayed, then we danced, and then we made relatives.
question is, you're an Indian? Well, yes. But you're black? Yes. But you're an Indian? Yes. But so how much Indian blood do you have?
There are people who even ask me, are you Indian? You don't look like the Indians that I know. Well, okay, fine. I don't look like your stereotypical Indian that's riding on a horse with the bonnet in the plains, and I'm not from that anyway. Yes, I have many different cultures that are in my blood, but I was raised with the culture and values that come from here.
Our tribe is a family. We're all related, and that's part of what it is to be a tribe, an ancestral tie to this place.
Growing up in the inner city, I was either Spanish or I was African American. But my heart and the way I was taught was Wampanoag. This is who you are.
Yeah, they don't even think I'm Native American. They just think I'm white sometimes or Spanish or something like that.
And again, when we talk about the fraudulent revisionist history of the Pilgrims eating with the Indians and Thanksgiving, that's supposed to have taken place on the East Coast with the Wampanoag tribe. And when we look at these members of the Wampanoag tribe, goddamn, they clearly some melanated folks. They clearly some black folks.
They don't really think of like us being like Native Americans.
Nowadays, like nobody's pure anything really. You can't really find a lot of people are mixed, and I am too. So I'm with my Native American grandmother more than my African grandmother. So I believe that I'm Native American no matter what.
Sometimes they would ask me what I am, and they would answer before I could. And it's like, don't judge people.
A lot of the reflection in this world that I receive is that the Wampanoag people don't exist. For the most part, people say that because they've never known a Wampanoag person. They probably never even heard the word Wampanoag. They probably don't even know, even though they were taught about the Pilgrims and the Indians in school, that we were the nation that, helped the Pilgrims through that first winter. We have intermarried and we have mixed, and that doesn't negate anything that has been passed on to us as Wampanoag people.
He was Chappaquiddick.
This is my family tree. Goes from my grandfather, then it just breaks it all down from Deep Bottom to Chappaquiddick. Goes on the 1610.
Akiamu, who was the sachem of Nantucket in the 1640s on into the 1700s.
Tim's son is named that. Tim, it's a nice name. I'm happy to see it there. I come from a black man who only had one name. His name was Peter. He was not a slave. He was a sea captain who had his own boat and was in the whaling industry. He married a native woman in Martha's Vineyard. My however many greats grandmother and that whole family line after them bears his single name as their last name. We as a people did stand behind freedmen and escaped slaves after the Dred Scott decision and put out a proclamation to let people know that they could find a safe refuge amongst our people.
Crispus Attucks, who was of Nauset Wampanoag lineage, was one of the original people killed in the Boston Massacre.
That's right. Fun fact, Black Indian member of the Wampanoag Nation was the first casualty of the Boston Massacre. He was the George Floyd of that time. He was the martyr that started the American Revolution.
Well-known Black Wampanoag.
The Mashpee Wampanoag in the late 17th and 18th centuries were known for being a kind of a haven for people of color of all different backgrounds. They were welcoming of outsiders because their definition of Indianness didn't have to do with color.
My life and giving me the direction I always needed, because growing up, I did not know about my family, nor did I know how to find out about my family. So the fact that I tried other avenues and I felt like I was getting scammed, going through his consultation, I really felt like someone was actually trying to help me out and throwing a lot of fat on my head, bro. A lot of the things that he dropped, a lot of the gems that he's going to show you, wholeheartedly, man, hang on tight, because that shit blew my mind.
Of all different backgrounds. They were welcoming of outsiders because their definition of Indianness didn't have to do with color. It had to do with whether you were really a member of the community or not. So children who had mixed ancestry parents were fully welcomed into these communities. And this was something that was hard for whites to understand, that somebody from a very complex, racially mixed background could be fully Indian. That was a really hard concept for scholars to get their minds around.
Even if there's racial mixture, you can see the same face coming down generations. You know, even if the coloring is different or something, you know, and you can if you know the people.
We have every color that you can imagine in our community. But what makes us Wampanoag is the fact that our relatives did carry on aspects of our culture. Now we have our language again. That increases the amount that we can show who we are.
Talk about it, y'all. Let's talk about it. They can't hide the history. I mean, they can, but only for so long. Till somebody like Mike comes around and pulls the receipts on their ass. Let's get into it. This next video I want to share with you is very, very important to me. I was so happy to come across this. These are some young girls, again, part of the Wampanoag tribe, again, melanated, young Black Indians, and they actually keep their indigenous culture alive in a very unique way.
The Wampanoag way. Meet Tashima and Storm. They're sisters. They're members of the Wampanoag tribe.
Hey, girls.
The girls live typical lives in Massachusetts. They go to school. They ride bikes. They hang out and have fun. But sometimes they get to do something very special. They show others what life was like for their people 400 years ago. That's what some members of the tribe do at the Wampanoag home site. Let's go for a visit. We'll step back in time as the girls show us what life
And yes, that is a variation of a longhouse.
was like for the Wampanoag people in the 1620s. The Wampanoag have been living in the Northeast for thousands of years. They were the group of people that the Pilgrims met when they first arrived in America in 1620. Here we are at the home site. The sun rises. It's time to wake up. The family is cozy in their wetu. A wetu is a Wampanoag home made of branches and tree bark. It's a warm, clear day. The girls go outside and have some breakfast. Their sister cooks it over an open fire.
And Casey, there actually are some variations of housing. The Wampanoag didn't necessarily live in the traditional longhouses that are known of like the Mississippian mound builders. The Wampanoag lived in wetus, and the wetus were a little more dome shaped. They were still elongated, but it was kind of like a long dome, whereas the traditional longhouses are longer, big rectangles.
They eat nassamp, which is hot corn porridge. They sweeten their nassamp with berries. They're a little thirsty. Time to get a drink. A spring runs through the home site. The girls dip hollowed-out gourds into the water and fill them up. The water is cool and fresh. Parents encourage kids to run around, play, and have fun. The girls love to play a game called double ball. Nice catch.
Does that game look familiar? American Indians also invented the game known as lacrosse.
Kids also help the adults out with chores. The Wampanoag grow corn. Big flocks of blackbirds want to eat the corn. The girls climb up high and yell and shout at the blackbirds. They're like human scarecrows.
And if you guys want to see this video in its entirety, maybe share it with some children in your family. This is called the Wampanoag Way. This video is safe for children. A lot of my content isn't, but if you want to go watch this, it's family friendly. Go ahead and check out this video because we've got beautiful representation there, and I think representation is very, very important. But what I also want to share is what some Wampanoag tribal members actually think of Thanksgiving. Not only Wampanoag tribal members, but let's hear from some Wampanoag youth.
"2020 marks the 400th year since the Mayflower arrived to Plymouth. Descendants of those who greeted the Pilgrims in Plymouth still live in a small town on Cape Cod called Mashpee.
I'm Alexandra Lopes-Pocknet. I am Mashpee and a sonnet band Wampanoag.
I'm Kobe Howerton, and I'm Mashpee Wampanoag.
I'm Annika Alvarez. I'm a sonnet Wampanoag, and I'm also Apache and Aztec. And it's my daughter, Sochi Blue Peters, and she's a sonnet and Mashpee Wampanoag, and she's also Apache and Aztec.
And my name is Deja Peters. My native name is Rising Waters, and I'm a member of the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe.
My name is Nakia Hendricks. I'm Mashpee Wampanoag.
I'm Lavoy Foster. I'm a member of the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe.
My name is Xavier Jones.
Darius Maximus Isaiah Burgo, Nanamaikon Concha.
Janae Perry.
Morgan Peters. Adam Jonas Jr.
Talia Mashkwasat Manunesh.
One word that I would associate with Thanksgiving is confusing.
Love.
Gratitude. I think gratitude is just ingrained in us as a people. Like one time my auntie said, we're a loving people. And she said, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way that we are.
Family.
Ancestors. Murder. Try to extinct the Native Americans.
My nigga, he said murder. My nigga. He said murder. No, for real, guys. It is what it's going to be. I think it's just important for us to get in touch with the truth. And then from there, we can choose to celebrate, mourn, and really honor our heritage however we see fit. Me personally, I no longer celebrate Thanksgiving. Not in the traditional sense. I'll go visit family. I'll go to grandma's house and stuff. But I actually fast on Thanksgiving Day. Tomorrow is Native American Heritage Day, and I'll be fucking up some leftovers, okay? So I do my eating on Native American Heritage Day, which is tomorrow. But I do still observe the holiday, you could say. I just choose more to go into the history, do some mourning instead of feasting. Tomorrow's the feast for me.
Remembrance. I think we have to remember the truth behind it.
Love and healing.
Resilience.
Unpaid reparations.
Awful. It wasn't even a national holiday. It wasn't even a real holiday until John Winthrop, he said it was Thanksgiving. We're going to call this day Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was an honoring of killing 700 Pequot, slaughtering men, women, and children. So they picked that day as the day of celebration for that.
When I grew up in school, I was taught about Thanksgiving, but I really wasn't taught much. And so the stuff I was taught was just kind of one chapter in a history book, and it really didn't go into depth much. But then when I would go home and talk to my native, my family, my aunts and uncles, they would tell a more dark side of history. And so growing up, it was kind of difficult to decipher like the truth versus the myth.
I don't really call it Thanksgiving. I call it Day of Mourning because, you know, that day is like we honor and we mourn our ancestors that we lost when the colonizers came over and brought diseases and systemic racism.
Okay, I done spent all this time slaving in the kitchen. Stop playing. Of course I cook this food. You, baby, go see who's at the door.
I know you waited for this one.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, this is a cancellation. I know this is the time of the year where the family members get together, ain't it? Greens, beans, potatoes, tomatoes, turkey better with the dressing, ain't it? Wonder if I put a little bit of blood on the turkey, would it elevate it? Bloody, bloody, bloody people of color. Cut them, shoot them, burn them, leave them to suffer. This song is not about pilgrims and Indians meeting each other and feasting for supper. This about millions of Indians murdered and villages burning and bleeding for nothing. This about all my descendants in Africa happy and acting like we ain't discussed it. Y'all be saying that ain't the reason we celebrate it. This about giving the glory to God and the time that we spend as a family.
A group of people that was really weak and not the best, and we doctored them back to life and shared our resources and showed them things and helped them survive.
Thanksgiving is a perfect time to spend quality time with your family and enjoy their presence.
I think of family because I come from a big family, and that was the only holiday that we all got together.
Not everything is bad depending on the perspective and the context. I love when family comes together and friends come together and the spirit is lifted and it's high and it's in a good place. So outside of the label, Thanksgiving, it's a beautiful time.
When you think of the first Thanksgiving, I think that most people don't realize that it's Wampanoag people. So the fact that we have like this astounding national holiday, but we don't even know the source of the people that it came from is disheartening. The overall like mental capacity and emotional capacity that it takes to carry yourself as a Native person in a modern society, it's not hard to be thankful, but it is difficult to see when do we receive what we've given over 400 years for everyone else to receive.
In order for us to welcome the newcomers, such as the Pilgrims on the Mayflower, we needed to remain resilient because what they brought over was something that was going to detriment us our entire lives and our entire people. So in order for us to even stay living and stay thriving and actually be stewards of this land, because that's what we are, and without us here, there would be no America, we needed to stay resilient.
I like the day off and I like eating the bird. That's where I'm at.
The American Thanksgiving has a very colonized portrayal and needs to be changed.
I wish people would understand more of our side to the story.
For the people I've seen, the non-natives I've seen who celebrate the Americanized Thanksgiving, they don't really think of it as like in a historical sense. They really just think of it as getting together, saying what they're grateful for, and just having a meal together. And so that I'm fine with. It's just more of the fact that a lot of people overlook the true history of Thanksgiving. That is kind of a little bit unsettling, I would say.
It is generally a great concept because it is based off of something that Native people have been doing for thousands of years. The concept of Thanksgiving and being thankful and celebrating the bountiful harvest of what you just did to prepare for the upcoming seasons and so on and so forth. But I do think it's important to remember that the Americanized Thanksgiving of what it is now is not historical. It's not something that was based off of history, and it's not even celebrated in the right way if you're trying to be culturally appropriate.
It didn't start out from a good place, and they tried to make it end up in a good place. They tried to cover it up like, oh, this is a time to be thankful with your family and eat and all that. But for Native Americans, it's like a day of mourning.
So long ago, we weren't even alive. We gotta accept the changes. Sounding just like the white kids that be saying, forget about segregation. I can't keep embracing the demons. How do we celebrate on the same day of agreements? Murder and torture and slavery. They was really chopping Indian babies to pieces. Cut off the mama head. Yeah, kick it around and play the street with it. Hold up. Did I already say chopping up babies to pieces? Chop up the baby. Chop the baby. Chop the baby. Grandma lucky. That's okay, granny. Watch the.
It's like a fairy tale made up story. All it is really is just murder, rape, genocide, all that. It's not correct.
Growing up too, it always felt sort of racist, only because it comes with so many different stereotypes. And I felt like growing up, we kind of had to like fight and argue about, you know, what we knew to be true versus what other people are trying to like tell us was truths.
People just kind of brush aside what actually happened before, after, and during. And I think we need to take the time and like really remember and educate people on what actually happened. It's hard to just pretend like what happened didn't happen.
Without us, the settlers most likely would have died off.
Should never trusted these folks. Like, they was never to be trusted in the first place. Came over here, got everyone sick, went back, told their peoples. More people came over here, killed and raped us. Like, well, part of it should we have trusted? Like, they didn't have a trustworthy bone in their body. Like, we should have not helped them out so much and not like help them survive in this country. They turned around and look what they did.
It's bothersome now where we live in a time where truth is there, truth that we have all kinds of access and avenues to truth. But yet there's still this consciousness to not want to believe truth.
The Americanized holiday of Thanksgiving is based off of this myth of the first Thanksgiving that the Wampanoags and Pilgrims came together to enjoy a bountiful harvest and were friendly and, you know, got along and just was a very happy time. When historically, all we know about what they based off of the first Thanksgiving is in Mort's relation. And it's simply that the English had a bountiful harvest and they were celebrating by shooting off cannons. And Massasoit at the time, Usamiquin, showed up with 90 warriors and stayed for a few days to have some food and to see what was going on. I wouldn't say it was a friendly encounter more than a respectable one where they're trying to respect the people that were occupying the land at the time, but at the same time being weary because they did show up with 91 warriors. So obviously they were questioning what was going on. And obviously they weren't.
Come on, they don't tell you that's a true story of Thanksgiving. Them natives pulled up like, hold on, what's going on over here, cuz? What's going on? What y'all got going on? We done heard some muskets and some cannons. Hey, y'all trying to squabble? Because we came ready to squabble. I came with 90 warriors. What's poppin'? We let y'all live over here. Is y'all cool? Y'all need to get put in check? Y'all wildin'? What's happening? Oh, okay. You got some food for it? Okay, bet. All right. Well, we gonna stay for a couple of days and keep an eye on things. Yeah, bet. All right. Come on, y'all. Come on. They pulled up on them like, what's good?
Friendly encounter more than a respectable one where they're trying to respect the people that were occupying the land at the time, but at the same time being weary because they did show up with 91 warriors. So obviously they were questioning what was going on. And obviously they weren't invited.
I mean, everybody likes to eat. I think it's great for people to have a Thanksgiving. But I think that what people lose sight of is that they should be being thankful every day. If I don't wake up and be thankful that, you know, I'm able to live in my ancestors' homeland, then all I'm able to do is wake up and think about, why do I have to live amongst all of these strangers?
And just think about that, guys. Isn't that such a European concept? You should be thankful every day. You should give gifts and celebrate your family every day. You should love your spouse and your family every day. You should honor mothers every day. You should honor fathers every day. You should honor veterans every day. But them Europeans, you know, them Europeans just they have such low standards, a lack of morality, no conscience. So it seems, some would say no soul. I don't know what you want to call it exactly, but they feel like, you know what? We celebrate what we're thankful for on Thanksgiving. We give gifts to our family on Christmas. We celebrate our mothers on Mother's Day and our fathers on Father's Day and our spouse on Valentine's Day. When us Aboriginals, these were customs we practiced on the daily, not just in special circumstance once or twice a year. I mean, just think about it, guys. Just think about it. And look how they bastardize our indigenous rituals. Thanksgiving was a indigenous celebration of the fall harvest. These pilgrims take it, bastardize it, twist it, and now they make it theirs.
A whole lot of trauma, you know? And
I'm able to do is wake up and think about, why do I have to live amongst all of these strangers?
It's trauma. It's a whole lot of trauma, you know. And some don't feel it as much. Some do, you know. And our land isn't even our land.
You know, it's a day of reflection, and then it's a day to honor our ancestors. And I think how we do that is we try to be better than our parents were with us. And I think that's how we heal the next 7 generations. I think we owe that to our kids, and we owe that to all the work that our ancestors instilled in us. To really be positive and aware of the people that we are. Like, we don't need 23andMe to know about how our families sacrifice and strive for us to have tradition and culture and awareness and love.
Well, for one, y'all need to really act like Native Americans exist in this country, because according to the history books, we don't exist.
You are sitting on land that was taken care of and appreciated and loved and protected by Native people for thousands of years before you stepped foot on it. For a lot of you, before your ancestors dreamt of a better life.
I do think that Native history should be taught more, and people should really learn about the things that have happened, because there definitely is a dark history. And I think that it would make the world a better place for Natives and non-Natives to work together the more that we understand each other.
Be thankful for every day. Don't just be thankful one day of the year. Be grateful for what you're given.
History repeats itself. Learn from the past, learn from what happened on Thanksgiving, and learn the truth and acknowledge the present.
Don't pretend that it's this happy holiday that everybody loves to celebrate and stuff. I think reach out to communities like ours and see how we feel about it. Just kind of don't pretend it's something that it's not.
I just think in society today, in the world that we live in, we all need patience. We all need love and tolerance. We all have to understand that we're not going to understand everything, and be okay with that. Be okay with the fact that agreeing to disagree is powerful. And we're humans, and like, give us a break. Like, get off our backs. Let us live. Like, we're equal. We're human. We matter. And that's no disrespect to anybody else.
As a tribal youth, what I would say to America is that we are still here. We are still living. And another thing I would like to say to America is that we are not your costume when it comes around Halloween.
There's still a whole lot of work that needs to be done just in general on the social justice front. This is for, Wampanoags and all of our other indigenous peoples, African Americans, and everybody else is basically not, top 1% and white.
If you live in the United States, you live in Indian country. So being aware of the history, the accurate history and reality, and how some of that trauma trickles into today, and how other people experience life in a different way than you do. And especially if you're privileged, please realize that privilege has afforded you so many more opportunities than you think.
Intergenerational trauma is huge within Native American culture. And because we are so connected to our culture and our ancestors and our history, we feel a lot of things that we can't explain. So that's why you get different reactions to whether it be Thanksgiving or Columbus Day from different Native Americans, because it's all a process that they have to work through. I think it's important to definitely remember and be thankful for the indigenous people around you.
When you look at a state like Arizona, who has Navajo Nation, 87,000 people, I think they said, voted, 97% rate for Joe Biden. So just over 70,000 people. So if Navajo Nation had decided that it wasn't up to them, we wouldn't be in the position of our country having a new president. So for me, it kind of loops back to my question of Thanksgiving and unpaid reciprocities. Every American family is going to sit down at their Thanksgiving dinner during a pandemic with their masks off, and they're going to pretend like everything is all good. But if Native people and Black people didn't show up for the vote, Donald Trump, who so many 70 million people think is positively atrocious, would have been president again. So for me,
okay, honey boo boo child, get your politics out of it. All of a sudden, this turned into a Donald Trump bashing session. Okay, lady. Okay, you are an indigenous Democrat. Okay, you're an indigenous Dem. You're a blue Indian, okay? You're not a red Indian. You're a blue Indian. God damn it, let it relax. Relevance, Your Honor. Relevance.
We're celebrating Thanksgiving, 400 years, commemorating.
Hey, and fun fact, she talking cash money shit about Trump, right? She talking cash money shit about Donald Trump. And in actuality, truth be told, when Donald Trump was president the first time around, he actually granted federal tribal recognition to indigenous tribes. He's also promised to do it again for the Lumbee tribe. But back in like 2020, I think it was, or it was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. Here, let me see. Which tribe did Trump grant recognition to? Hey, I didn't hear about Joe Biden giving any Indians no recognition, no reparations. But Trump, let's see what he did back in the day. See, he just said he would do it again with the Lumbee tribe, which is why everything is more recently talking about the Lumbee Indians. But back in 2000, yeah, see, he signed 3 bills. That's why you got to do some fact checking around here, okay? Got to do some fact checking. Let's see what these bills were about. This has been a long journey. We've worked tirelessly. Tribal Council said President Trump's relationship with the Native American has been difficult. What was the name of? Come on, y'all. Y'all know me as the king of receipts. I gotta find the receipt. But they keep talking about the Lumbee tribe. That's a more recent one, he said. Let me see. President signs Virginia Tribes Recognition Bill. Here we go. Here we go. So what Trump did is he signed a law that gave federal recognition to the Chickahominy, the Eastern Chickahominy, the Upper Mattaponi, and the Wampanoag, the Monacan, and the Nasaman. These tribes received official recognition from the Commonwealth of Virginia, but had faced barriers preventing them from receiving federal recognition. Now that they've got federal recognition, they can get their tribe's legal standing in order and establish a relationship with the U.S. government, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yes, this passed in 2017 with unanimous consent through Senate. And in January 11, 2018, I'm not sure if this is the date, but either way, shortly thereafter, President Trump signed the legislation into law. So, yeah, it's interesting how that Indian girl is Dick Red in the Democrats when I haven't heard about any Democratic president doing anything for Indians, if we just going to call a spade. And if we look into the history of reclassification and chattel slavery, it was the Democrats that were the slave masters. It was the Republicans that were freeing them. So, yeah, truth is much, much stranger than fiction as far as that is concerned. Let's get on into it. And guys, if I misspeak at any point in time, correct me, but I'm pretty sure it was the Democrats that were either a lot of them slaveholders themselves, or, you know, they weren't really for the abolition of slavery or the emancipation. It believe it or not, it was actually the conservative folks over there on the Republican side. So, yeah, it's interesting how in modern day, Black folks have this unyielding allegiance to the Democratic Party, and the Democrats never really rocked with this.
Of the Pilgrims being here and finding their way. But in 400 years, I haven't seen any evidence of colonists and their predecessors who are able to grow or develop their country in any way, unless it's with the help, and a lot of the time saving, of Black and brown and indigenous people.
As Native Americans, indigenous people, we're here to stay. We're not going nowhere. Stronger than ever. Our foundation is built under this country, so we definitely not going nowhere. We here to stay.
That's right. We're here to stay, and it's up to us to keep the heritage, keep the culture, keep the history alive. I hope you guys are having a good time with your family. We will be doing a live stream tomorrow to celebrate Native American Heritage Day, and I'll see you guys later.
I done spent all this time slaving in the kitchen. Stop playing. Of course I cooked this food. Baby, go see who's at the door.
I know you waited for this one.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, this is a cancellation. I know this is the time of the year where the family members get together, ain't it? Greens, beans, potatoes, tomatoes, turkey better with the dressing, ain't it? Wonder if I put a little bit of blood on the turkey, would it elevate it? Bloody, bloody, bloody people of color. Cut them, shoot them, burn them, leave them to suffer. This song is not about pilgrims and Indians meeting each other and feasting for supper. This about millions of Indians murdered and villages burning and bleeding for nothing. This about all my descendants in Africa happy and acting like we ain't discussed it. Y'all be saying that ain't the reason we celebrate it. This about giving the glory to God in the time that we spend as a family, ain't it? That was so long ago, we weren't even alive. We gotta accept the changes. Sounding just like the white kids that be saying, forget about segregation. I can't keep embracing the demons. How do we celebrate on the same day of agreements? Murder and torture and slavery, they was really chopping Indian babies to pieces. Cut off the mama head, yeah, kick it around and play the
Evening, I had a consultation, a genealogy consultation to figure out my Native American ancestry. And I was given a lot of valuable information this evening, from the origin of the tribes to the different ethnic breakdown to how everything was ran and colonized before, the discovery of Columbus, and after he came over here. So I think that you will find the value in the information as I did.
Hold up. Hey, did I already say chopping up babies to pieces? Chop up the baby. Chop the baby. Chop the baby. Grandma lucky. That's okay, Granny. Watch the baby. Eat up the dead bodies. Yeah. And you thought the cops was crazy. I'm killing everybody. Oh yeah. I'm talking Nazi crazy. More blood than the Holocaust. But y'all still won't call it off. Kill so many Indians, they had to get Africans. That's how we got involved.
Many know about slavery, but few discuss paper genocide. We did not all come from Africa, and most of us have aboriginal roots that were stripped away due to reclassification and miseducation. As a Native Black American and a member of the Muscogee Creek Nation, I understand the importance of tracing your lineage. If you want to learn how to trace your genealogy and apply for tribal citizenship, send an email to mike@keymediapro.com to schedule a consultation.
Then they went and got involved. That's when they got our heart involved. Because of that reason, we made this a black tradition. Tell me who asked we kissing. Ain't we the same people that was marching on Washington for racial equality? Ain't we descendants of civil rights leaders making sure they educated us properly? Ain't we the same people, mad at the same people for making a mockery? Didn't we invent cancel culture? So tell me why we can't cancel culture.
I am a Mashantucket Pequot tribal member. I became federally recognized in 1993. Previous to that, I was always known to be an Afro-American. I was told as I was younger that we have native blood, if you will, and relatives of the Narragansett and the Pequots. I remember as I was growing up, the question was asked a lot if I'm mulatto because of my light skin. And I'm like, no, there are no Caucasians in my family as I know of. But it came clear to me when I was told more of my native side.
Here in Lexington, Kentucky, it's so important. People honestly don't look at me on the street and see my name, Victor Hess, and go, oh yeah, Narragansett. Probably doesn't dawn on them. It probably says, African American by virtue of my pigmentation.
As you're aware, in 1912, Dr. Walter Plecker became the first director of the Bureau of Vital Statistics. Prior to that, there were no birth certificates, and he was a director up until the 1940s, 1946, until his death. But he was part of the eugenics movement, which was a movement about creating one race of people, which was white, and everything else was put in a pot, as Tina Marie would say, and stir it up and call colored. But he went beyond board on that, wherein as far as first Americans are concerned, he changed birth certificates and marriage license. He even put out letters to census takers in 1930 that people such as myself that are first Americans and Native Americans, that he considered us as being bastards, that we were just trying to be Indian to marry into the white race. What's so interesting about that was that in the 30s he gave a presentation in New York City and on eugenics, and there were commanders associated with Adolf Hitler that attended that particular meeting.
But basically, when he was the registrar for the Bureau of Vital Records, he changed the names of Indian people in Southampton County, their race, from Indian to Negro or colored.
Well, it was referred to as colored, and basically all the tribes in Virginia in the early 1900s were referred to as colored. Okay, then after the 1924 Racial Integrity Act, everything that was in that colored bowl became Negro. Everything that was in that colored bowl became Negro, became Negro, became Negro.
They don't want you to remember this. You not no slave, you indigenous. Fuck how they painted them Indians. You went to war with the French and the British men. Quite frankly, you was kings, Merovingians. They took the women and men, made them prisoners. Raised up the children to worship their images. Set up a lab to the genes and they mixed them. And this shit get way deeper than your pigment.